as well as familial love between Edward and the Cullen clan, as well as Bella with her father Charlie and her mother Renee, and even a little bit of familial love with Bella and Edward's family, who is not yet her own family. The main source of love, many would argue, is the romantic love between Edward and Bella, and at times between Jacob and Bella, although that never does fully blossom into romantic love. It does tend to straddle the line between friendly love and romantic love. The familial love that we see between the Cullens is a very strong and rare type of love in this environment, because with the Cullens being vampires, you would not typically see this type of love, bond, and relationship between them, as they are typically more nomadic and independent creatures in this world. So covering the first theme, which is love, L-O-V-E, L-O-V-E, love, love, love. And the next theme that we come across here is reality. Different perspectives of reality, different perceptions of reality. We see this from the very first scene of the book as well as the movie. And this is where we start out with Bella's dream. And if you have read the book, you would know that this dream that she has is a nightmare, really, of her looking into the mirror, standing in a meadow, and she originally believes that she is looking at her grandmother, and Edward is standing next to her grandmother. Then, as she moves and reacts, she realizes that it is not her grandmother, but it is actually her when she has aged. Okay. She wakes up, and this dream sort of haunts her throughout much of the remainder of the book, as she fears that Edward will stay young as a vampire who does not age, and she will age to become an elderly woman, while he remains forever the same. So, a dream or nightmare is one version of reality. We also have Bella's hallucinations and the results of those hallucinations. So that is after Edward leaves Bella toward the beginning of the book. She is mourning his absence, and she realizes that when she gets herself into dangerous situations, such as when Laurent, an enemy vampire, comes and attempts to hunt her, Edward shows up as a hallucination, and she is able to hear his voice, and this is like an adrenaline rush to her. So when she survives that situation, she later goes on to ride a motorcycle, which is not fitted to her. She's very clumsy. She interacts with a dangerous group of men. She even goes cliff diving and risks her life. And she does this in order to see these hallucinations of her lost love. And another version of reality that his father of sorts, and he and Edward both tend to struggle with the idea of mortality, and although they do not kill humans, they live off of the blood of animals. They worry about their souls and whether or not they would be able to pass into heaven if their lives were somehow ended. So that is a struggle that we see throughout much of the book and throughout much of the saga. Is it moral to be an immortal being? So that one was quite simple, but that was mortality. The idea of mortality. Mortality. Okay. And we have the last two things, and we are quickly running out of time here. So we may have to save those for another time, or next time we resume class. But just a little sneak peek. I'm sure you saw that the last two remaining themes are the theme of transformation and good versus evil, which we've discussed sort of briefly a little bit, whether you realized it or not when we were discussing the first three themes. But as the period is just about to end, we can't really get to those today, but please keep in mind what we were able to cover, and let me know if reading these yourself, if you were able to spot any additional themes, as there are typically an endless amount of themes that can be interpreted in any given novel. I'm not sure if this is something that you have seen cinema-wise on TV. I know, like I said, it does get a lot of flack online. A lot of people don't really understand the craze with Twilight, but there is a lot of deepness, and there's a lot buried under the surface if you really look at the saga as a whole and the decisions of the characters. But I hope that you were able to learn something today, Alex and